Hello everyone, my name is Charanjit Singh, and in this presentation on free speech, I will share with you why I'm interested and how does understanding free speech enable its use in a way that benefits the society. You would agree that free speech is an enormously important issue. Recent statements from the new Ontario government has informed higher education institutions to uphold free speech. Universities and to a slightly lesser extent, colleges are facing strong pressure to allow free speech. Ontario government has recommended University of Chicago's statement on principles of free expression to develop, implement and comply with a free speech policy. There are four key concepts in the recommended statement: culture of intense inquiry, informed arguments generate lasting ideas, reciprocal exchange among members of its community to challenge and to listen. I'm interested in this problem from an educational research perspective because both culture of intense inquiry and reciprocal exchange are highly valuable to me. It will be interesting to see whether understanding free speech can improve educational and research experience in the context of teaching and learning and building a community of inquiry and practice. Also, what are the emerging tensions associated with understanding free speech, particularly due to increasing diversity and adoption of technologies in educational environments? How would free speech shrink to or expand the conversation? As a researcher, I examine the changing nature of who is provided free speech protection, why and how that might affect the marginalized voices in the society. Might the understanding of free speech enable its usage in a way that benefits the society at large? I would like to talk about Foucault, who in his book on free speech has revisited four ancient concepts related to understanding free speech: Parrhesia, free speech; Peristhesis, to use free speech; Isegoria, equal rights to participate; and Agora, space to appear, the space where Parrhesia or free speech appears. This is ancient Agora, the space where free speech appears. From this perspective, free speech is different than having a right to participate. Why do we need it to understand free speech? It's important because people by nature may like or dislike each other. So instead of starting a conversation, people might offend or get offended by speech of one another if they dislike the content. Foucault says that in order for free speech to have positive political effects, it must now be linked to a good education. Because in order to have free speech, it's not just enough to have frankness or sheer courage in this relation, it requires education and personal training also. Research on hate crimes in Canada indicates that hate crime in Canada is on the rise. What are the current practices of using free speech by various stakeholders in education? Free speech appears in spaces such as blackboards, whiteboards, both inside and outside the institution. Social media campaigns to counter negative and stereotypical narratives are organized. Special events are also organized to give a space for free speech. Universities use online space to inform and engage stakeholders to invite their feedback. Public debates are held throughout the institution. One such free speech debate was recently held by Monk Debates in Toronto. There's also a digital space, Nova Grow, proposed for free speech to appear by researchers Nathalija and Jenny. A group is calling Monk Debate to cancel, and they have a right and they are sharing it outside the place where these debates are held. The result of these debates are electronically shared with the public. I would like you to pause for a moment and note an insightful observation that has emerged from these free speech appearance spaces and practices within the education institutions. You would have observed that these are all static in nature and oftentimes a one-way information carrying processes. What seems missing is a dynamic space that various stakeholders can engage in collaborative thinking and learning process within an educational environment. To meet the requirements mentioned in the Statement of Principles of Free Expression, what needed is a space where free speech appears as a fearless flow of inquiry that consciously engages stakeholders, members of the community, in an ongoing conversation. I propose a design for such online collaborative space that is theoretically grounded in juxtaposed characteristics of both community of practice and community of inquiry. From a technical perspective, this space will be a distributed network similar to Nova Agora. It will collect data on the position as well as the values of various members of the community who are engaged in that conversation. As a functional interactive space using asynchronous online technology, it will allow text message sharing, perspective sharing. This will redesign learning environments into free speech collaborative thinking spaces and help building cohesive communities bringing diversity together. So finally, I'm summing my 6 type of arguments from an educational research perspective. The argument from intense inquiry, the argument from community building perspective, individual courage perspective, diversity inclusion, education and training perspective. For free speech, we definitely need to encourage more training, and then finally a digital space that facilitates. I will explore case studies that can serve as models for student analysis on how to introduce and adopt free speech. I will request you to kindly click on the next slide link and share your perspective and values about this topic of free speech as a way to start a conversation on free speech. Thank you so much. Really appreciate your time.